Alright, welcome back. What we have here is a Toro CCR Powerlite. This is one of the easiest snow blowers to work on. This belongs to a guy at work, good friend of mine actually. He's having a hard time getting it to stay running, so first thing I noticed, the primer bulb on this. I'm sorry guys, I don't have a lot of room in the shop right now. I got the sled tore into. The primer bulb's garbage. It's really common on these. I'm going to get it up on the bench here. I'm going to show you how to swap that. And then we'll see if it's just a simple blowing the carb out, draining the fuel. And after we get that done and get it running good, we're going to change the paddle and scraper for them. So let me get it up on the bench. Let me show you how easy it is to do this. Alright, to get that primer bulb replaced up here, this is really simple. Can't get no easier to work on these. A lot of times too guys, if you have a hard time getting it to start and it's just been sitting for 1 year with gas, loosen up your 1/2" float bowl nut. And just let some of that old fuel drain out. These are going to be 5/16. Get the back off. Once you get the back off, these machines were built really good for what they were back in the day. Blow a lot of snow too. I will say I can smell starting fluid. I got to talk to him about that. Never use starting fluid in a 2-stroke. Okay, now that you got that done, got that off. Let me get the camera in here good. Somehow, some way for you guys. Take a flathead on your primer line here and peel, just push back to get your primer line off, just like that. And now up on top of the machine, show you, up here, take your flathead, get it underneath the plastic plate. You can do this without removing this black plastic cover. Just be careful. Sometimes those plastic backers will break. You can buy them where they're all together. Boom, have it popped out. Get a hold of her, just like this. Let me show you how to put the new one on. Take and peel this old one off. You can use needle nose if you want, or cut it, or however you want to get it off. It'll rip. Get that out of here. Wipe the inside of this out with a rag. Clean that up a little bit, get all that debris out of there. Just don't want it getting in the fuel system, that's all. Okay, now what I do is I'll take and I'll put the corner of this in here, the rubber, like this in the plastic, and I'll gently take a pair of needle nose. You got to be careful because you can rip this rubber. And I'll grab a hold of it and I'll roll it over just like that, and I'll take and work it back just like this, and boom, now you can see we have it. So we'll pop it on and I'll show you how to clean the carb real quick. Okay, let's pop the primer bulb back in. It just snaps right into the housing, the plastic top housing. You just push it down, boom, slip your fuel line on it. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna drain the gas out of this. And these are 1/2" on the float bowl nuts. So let me open up the bowl. Okay, since I'm working with limited room, I didn't drain out the fuel tank yet. I'm sorry, it's just I got so much stuff in the garage. So now you're gonna get your 1/2" float bowl nut off. Make sure you drop it on the floor. Yeah, he's just got old gas in here. Let me show you, let me dump it out. Float bowl's nice and clean. We'll let this fuel drain out into a paint pan now that I have the float bowl off. It'll probably take a while. I don't know how much is in this tank. The tank's full, so it's going to take a few minutes. Now, being that the carburetor is pretty clean on this, it's not really gunked up. This gas just turned old after a year. What I like to do is I'll take my air compressor, or you could take a bottle of carb clean, whatever, stick it up in the main jet, give her a little blow. Take your bowl nut right here, blow in there, make sure your center hole is clean, and your 2 side holes and your 3rd hole right here. And then go ahead and put the float bowl back on, and let's see if this thing runs. You can see the dentation in your float bowl too. The dentation, the up part, where the bowl's dented in, it's made like that on purpose. It's supposed to go where your float pin goes, so your float's got full travel in the front here. Go ahead and tighten her up, and let's see if this thing runs. Alright, as you can see, we got it running. You guys seen how easy that was? Really simple. Doesn't get no easier than that. We are going to be doing paddles and scraper on this, and I'm going to see if the electric start works, because I see it's hanging down in there. When my buddy wants that fixed, I'll show you guys how to do the bracket on them. It's cheap, common, really easy thing to fix. It's a little bit involved, but it's not too bad. So the next part of this video, we'll do the paddles and scrapers, and we'll put that back cover back on, and there you go. Save yourself a hell of a lot of money. Okay, for the paddles, you need 3/8, and then you're gonna have, these are T27s. Don't use a 25. A lot of people do. You can use a hand ratchet, whatever you need, but in the last video I made for paddles and scrapers, I like to use needle nose vice grips, and I'll clamp them right on that inside nut, and it'll hold that nut for me. Always do one paddle at a time so you don't get everything mixed up, especially if you haven't done them before. And you'll see these will just turn right out for me. Just like that. See how fast it goes? We got to get this bottom one here. Same thing. Now, as I stated in my last video, if you use by hand, you can put a little oil or grease or something, just a little bit, to help seat these shoulders or these bolts in there if you are pushing it by hand. Now we'll go ahead and we'll get the 3/8 out in the center here. Same method. I just use needle nose vice grips for all this stuff, putting them back together and taking them apart. Guys can see how fast it goes. Boom, I already got them out. Now I'll pull these last two out over here. I think a shop charges $50 labor to do paddles and scrapers. There you go, you have it. There's your paddle off. Now go get your new ones and put them back on in the same order. Okay, here's my new paddles. They were $30 on Amazon. I have another video discussing the difference with aftermarket compared to OEM. Yes, they don't last as long. The one thing I will say though with this is, see how you got your wear hole here? They were gone on his other ones, but with these aftermarket ones, actually, the cording in the middle is the same as the factory ones. So you're gonna want the rubber to come down first. Stick it in there just like that. Put your 2 3/8 back in there. I get them started usually with my hand. I'll put them in just like that. Put my nuts on the back side. Sometimes you need a tool to push on them to get them to start. Just like that. Now we'll tighten them up with the same tool I took them off with. Like this. Hopefully my camera's showing it. Make sure we're in forward. Tighten them down. Just like that. Get your T27 back on. And I'll just show you guys one side. There's no need for me to sit here and explain the same thing over and over. You can always rewatch the video if you're doing this. Put my my star bolt in there with the shoulder. Get it lined up with the hole. Come on the back side. And you just want them so that bolt is just flush with the rubber. I will say on these Powerlites, they're a little bit more difficult. If you are doing them by hand, you might have to fight with it a little bit. That's why I really like using an electronic tool or even an air ratchet. And make sure you don't cross thread your nuts. As you can see, I got it in there. So I'll push it through. Sometimes when you start it, you turn it on, the threads will bring it through. Put it on. Boom, there you go. So I'll repeat it with the other side here, and I'll get the other one on, and then we'll be good to go to do the scraper bar. Also, make sure you pop your belt cover off and check your belt. If I'm not mistaken, I put a belt on this for him a year or two ago, so I'm not going to pop that belt cover. But if you're in a shop setting or you're doing this for a friend or whatever you're doing, check that belt. They're cheap to buy. There we have it, guys. It took me about 6 or 7 minutes. The paddles are all on. You can see how the cording is on them. Now I'll show you how we get the scraper bar off. You are going to need a grinder or a drill or some way, because the bolts are going to be ground. I'll show you what I mean. I also have another video on my YouTube channel that'll show you how to check the paddles if they're wore out. If they don't have the wear hole in them, like these have the wear hole right here. You can see this little hole. When they get down into that, they're shot. Make sure, especially on these Powerlites, you pay attention to the scraper bar. If you run this thing without a scraper bar, you'll destroy the housing, you'll be screwed. So it's pretty much, when you do one, you gotta do the other, because when you go to tip the machine, if the paddles are too short with a new scraper bar, it won't self-propel itself. You'll be fighting it. But let's get this scraper bar off. As you guys can see, these bolts are ground flat from being too close to the cement. So what I like to do is I'll take an angle grinder and I'll either cut a slot in them and try to get them off, or I'll just cut them all the way off and I'll use channel locks to get the remainder out. So I'm going to bring the camera back up on the tripod, bring the camera back up here for you guys, and let's get them ground out of there. Just like that. Once you got the heads grinded off, you'll be able to pull this thing back. You might need a flathead to pry it. Take a flathead, pry it back, because you got to get it off the studs, what's left of your bolts. Once you pry it back, it'll slide off. Just like this. Once you slide it off, take yourself a set of vice grips. Nice big set of vice grips. And I'll show you. Just go ahead and clamp them on to what's left of the stud and back them out. There you go. They come right out. Come off like a prom dress. And now take your new scraper bar, get it out of the bag. Slide your scraper bar on. You'll see the little slot right here. Slide it up in there. This kit was nice. I only paid 30 bucks on Amazon. Yes, I'm gonna tell my buddy it's aftermarket kit, but I'll tell you what, the way the paddles look, I would say they're pretty damn good for aftermarket ones. We'll see how long they last for them. This is a really good friend of mine, so he ain't getting charged no labor. All right, these are just gonna be 5/16, and just tighten them down. I'll get that done off camera. All right, and there we have it. That's a simple, easy tune-up. That's basically gonna be getting one of these running if it's only been sitting for like a year with gas in it. There's no varnish in the carb or anything. Really easy. Sometimes you get lucky, just loosen that float bowl, let some of that old gas out, and you're good to go. Primer bulb's notorious on these. I did mention in this video that I was going to replace the electric start bracket. I'm gonna make a separate video for that. That's another super common issue on these. Obviously, if the electric start motor's not spinning at all, then you know they're really pricey if you can still get them, but the brackets always break on these. So I'm gonna make another video, so I just want to say thanks for watching. That's a real simple, fast Powerlite tune-up and scraper bar and paddles. Back in the day when I was in the shop, it's a $170 job. So we just did that for 30 bucks. So if you like the content and you like saving yourself some money and you like some small engine, some snowmobile stuff, hit the subscribe button. A little support, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.